Hey, Ray.
Recording in progress. So how do you get that off the? Got it. There.
So you're using your telephone today instead of your laptop or your
My iPad. Yes. Because I can't remember how I got into memories. And so, to click on a separate email as memory on it. So I got to go to my phone.
Whatever works. Whatever works.
It works. It does. Okay. So today we decided we're going to start with, some things about Daddy from his youth, right?
Yep.
Okay. So since knowing about walking to school, how about we do that first because he was younger?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think this, I don't know whether when we were just talking on just the audio part, I don't remember whether this came up or not, but at the end of World War I, he talked about, he knew that everybody was so happy. And so he got in his little car that sounded like it must have been one of those cars that you wheel, that you pedal. And he was pedaling up and down the sidewalk, and he had a flag in the car, and everybody was so happy. So that was a neat memory he had.
He was around, right?
Beg pardon?
He was around 10 years old then, I guess.
Well, he was born in 09, and so I don't know what year that would have been.
I think it'd be close, plus or minus.
Yeah. And then he talked about when he was going to school and he went barefoot. I guess there were so many kids that there just weren't enough funds to buy shoes for everybody. So he walked to school barefoot, and he would stop at a friend's house and play to warm his feet up. So I thought that was sort of touching.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's sort of hard to believe to me.
Yeah, but we have an ancestor that had to go to school barefoot.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember Daddy talking about once when he was at the Citadel, and he was a jock, and so I'm sure he ran around with jocks. And one guy was telling everybody that no one could choke him. Was that right?
That's what I remember him talking about.
That nobody can choke him. So several tried and they couldn't. So Daddy tried and he did. And the kid just passed out, and Daddy just thought he killed him. And he was mortified. And I mean, you can just imagine that. And I think about it today, and I guess the kid didn't know enough to tap out.
Yeah, I didn't know that until you mentioned it. So explain what is tapping out.
Well, Adam has talked about it quite a bit, and I'm guessing the kids know, but that when you're wrestling, and if you have some kind of hold that you are going to lose consciousness, you tap on the wrestler or tap on the floor or something, and then the opponent, lets the wrestler up, and that's called tapping out. You literally tap something. And so I think the kid didn't know to tap out, and Daddy didn't know that he didn't kill the kid. I feel sorry for him because he said he just panicked.
Yeah. So I don't remember how many times I heard the story, but the fact that both of us heard it means it must have really made an impression.
Well, one other thing I think I mentioned this to you after one of our memory sessions, but it seems like one of the last trips that Daddy made, he and Mom and I went to Charleston. And it seems to me that Charleston and the Citadel time were just, that Citadel time was one of the most important times to him, and he really enjoyed it so much. Would you say, Betty?
Well, after the beginning.
Well, yeah, after the beginning.
The beginning wasn't too much fun.
Yeah, but it made a great story.
It did. Yeah, very great.
But I don't know how he must have been in his late 80s and Mom in her late 80s when we went to Charleston, and we went to the Citadel. And so Daddy was on the field where he played football. He was kind of reminiscing, and there was a young cadet who I can't remember if he gave tours or not, but he was really friendly. And Daddy asked him, well, is it okay if I go on the field? And I can't remember what that kid said, but it was something like, you earned it. Yes, you
wow.
Where you want. And so we walked across the field, and there's a little church there. And there was a big plaque in the front of the church, and it had listed all the cadets or Citadel grads or something. I can't remember how many, but that died. And I think it was just in World War II, but not positive that. And so Daddy was looking at all these names, and he'd recognize some of them.
Wow.
And this is so and so and so. And I remember one he pointed out that he remembered, and he said, talked about how popular this cadet was and how everybody looked up to him, and he was a wonderful person.
Wow.
It was really touching. And somewhere I've got a picture of him pointing to one of the names, and he and Mom were looking up, but
wow.
It was really touching. And I just thought of him, remembering these people. And the last thing I remember, and I did tell you about this, was at one point, Mom and I were sitting on a bench, sort of, by a street. And I don't know why. I don't know whether Daddy got low on cigarettes or what. He had to go back to the room. And so he crossed the street, and Mom was watching him, and she was going, oh, Ben looks so old. Look at Rae. And I just thought he looked like Daddy because I'd been noticing, but she hadn't. And it was kind of sad.
Yeah. But you see each other close up, and in your normal habitat. But then you all of a sudden see at a distance.
And you got to figure Daddy didn't walk much. I mean, by that time, he walked from his chair to the kitchen table to the bathroom. And that, wouldn't you say that was pretty much?
Yeah, because his feet hurt. I mean, he never, I think it was partly from wearing shoes that were too small. I think I remember that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just then, it wasn't just that they didn't have money for new shoes, but it was that he says that because, his feet were large. And he said that people would say that they turned down too much for his feet when he was being created. But he would wear shoes that were too small because he was embarrassed about his large feet. And then that in his later years, then he really couldn't walk with comfort. So that was
Well,
one
it's
reason
like
he didn't walk much.
that he had really bad bunions.
Yeah, from
And
the tiny shoes, I guess.
yeah, and his feet sort of, went out like butterfly wings or
Hmm.
something like that.
Well, talking about World War II reminded me, I think I mentioned this to you earlier too, that he very much wanted to go overseas during World War II. I mean, he felt very patriotic. And, but of course, the Army doesn't like to do what you want to do. So they kept him as a radar instructor. And I guess radar probably was pretty high tech at that point. I mean, leading edge.
Yeah.
And so he was teaching it there at Fort Bliss. He didn't get to go overseas, which Mom was relieved, of course.
Yes.
But Earl and Darcy both went overseas, and they were both flying. Well, Earl was a pilot, right?
Yeah, he was a forward observer. Oh, wasn't Darcy a forward
I
observer?
think Darcy was, but I don't think he was piloting. He was in Italy, and Earl was in France, I think, wasn't he? I think
so. I kind of remember Darcy in Italy, but I guess it makes sense that Earl would have been in France. I don't know.
Yeah. Our descendants will have to look up where exactly Earl was, but I think that he was flying around the Battle of the Bulge. I mean, I think he was in some real danger. Yeah.
Well, Earl III might know that.
Oh, yeah. We have people we can ask.
Yeah, because a lot of people are gone and we can't ask them.
Yeah, firsthand people.
Yeah.
Have graduated, quote, quote.
Yep, they graduated.
Yep.
But I remember, I think, asking Daddy one time when I was older, I don't know whether I was college or something, but apparently I had been talking to Mom because she was saying that Daddy didn't actually have to go in because he was older, although we realized he wasn't much older.
No.
Darcy Earl, but that he, had a wife and a child, and he didn't really have to go in. But I asked Daddy once, well, why did you go in? And he said something like, I felt that, I needed to serve. That he said he went to the Citadel, he learned all these things, he had this experience in the military, and that he wanted to go, he thought he could do a good job, and it was very frustrating that he was never able to go. And did you ever hear either Daddy or Mom say that he actually, I think it was in 1945, got his orders to go, I don't know, whether East or West, but the war ended before he had a chance to go. Do you remember something like that?
Not really. I mean, it almost rings a little bell, but not much of one.
Well, I guess our descendants will have to Google that.
That's right. They're going to be very busy checking up on all that we are talking about.
Betty, we should be making a list of all these things. I don't know if I'd have that many pens, paper.
Yeah. Yeah, we do jump around.
So where would you like to go now? Is there anything else you remember about Daddy as a young pup? Do we talk about how Mom always said that he was Papa Brown's favorite?
I think you mentioned that once.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this is a Papa Brown kind of memory. This is funny. I thought it was funny because Daddy kept trying to get Mom to fix bacon and eggs like Papa Brown did when they were out camping. And Mom never could do it. And she was saying, Ben, nothing is going to taste like it did when Papa Brown cooked eggs and bacon for you when you were camping. That's impossible to match.
Well, it sounds
that was kind of a standing joke.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know that.
And I don't know how many times Papa Brown and Daddy went camping, but if they went together without the other kids, that would certainly be why Mom would say that Daddy might have been Papa Brown's favorite.
Maybe, Papa Brown would not have ignored any of the other kids if they all went to the store and charged ice cream.
Yeah. Well, this is a story about that Dad told about when he was growing up. And it seems like it might have been George, his brother George, who was shooting flaming arrows. Do you remember that?
Oh, when they got the roof on fire? They do that?
Well, I don't think this was when the house burned. You said that you remember that the house actually burned, and didn't you? But I think the roof did get set on fire with that arrow.
I know what. Yeah, I think the house did burn, but it must have been, I don't know, within the last 2 or 3 decades. So it was pretty recent.
Yeah. Yeah. In our time. Our timeline is recent. And we could mention that their house was right beside the ballpark, baseball park. Do you remember that?
I do. Well, I think I do.
Yeah. And so, of course, there were a lot of chinks in the fence. And so you could just walk across the driveway and check out the ball game.
Yeah. I imagine Daddy watched quite a few games.
I guess we should mention that we're talking about Anderson, South Carolina.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Because Daddy was born in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, right? Is that Mississippi?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say 1909, and they didn't have birth certificates really. And I guess he went down, I don't know if there was a register of deeds or what, but his birth certificate is just handwritten. And
well, we have in our possession, if it's still there for our descendants, it's right now in a fireproof little box. But there's a letter from Papa Brown to the Citadel that says that Daddy's birth is recorded in the family Bible. And so that's the closest thing we have to a birth certificate, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know where the family Bible is. I don't know who would have that.
Could have been anybody, any one of them.
It probably would have stayed at the Brown house. And his brother George and his wife Nell lived there for all of their lives, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so the Bible probably was there, and it might be in the possession of George and Nell's son, George Jr., George Brown Jr. So he might be the one that would have the family Bible that would have Daddy's original.
Well, George Jr. must have been, I think he was pretty interesting, but I don't know all the story about this, but I think this part's true, that he was living with his parents, George and Nell, and he really separated George and Nell from all their siblings and family. And from what I understand was that there was one time that Father George had sustained a really bad burn. And I don't know, do you remember anything about that? It was, of
I
course,
think it was just a mystery, and we didn't know what was going on, and Daddy didn't know what was going on and couldn't get in touch.
yeah. And at one point, I don't remember when, but their house burned down. And that was another mystery. But
Well, that might have taken care of the family Bible too.
yeah. But I think the siblings didn't know that George and Nell had died. Is that right? Or they did and they weren't able to go to the funerals, or, you know, I mean, it was something that was really sad.
Yeah, it was very mysterious, so we really don't know.
Yeah,
That's something for a biographer to look into.
it is. And I know that George and Nell had two sons, and the older one was Johnny, and he was pretty normal, and he and Daddy got to be really close. And then at a young age, he died of cancer, which was really sad, but he was the one that would have been able to keep George and might have been able to protect George and Nell.
Yeah. Yeah. Johnny Brown was neat person. Mm-hmm.
Was he near your age, Betty, or
He was just a little younger. And one time when we were at Montreat, which is a retreat in the mountains near Black Mountain, North Carolina, Johnny came up and gave me a ride down to, I don't think we went to Anderson. Seems like we went to Greenville. But he was pretty young, and it was sort of a wild ride on those mountain roads. Back then, you know, the roads were just snakes.
I bet that was.
Yeah, so it was pretty hair raising, but it was very fun. Yeah, he was neat guy. And the Browns as a family had a propensity for colon cancer. And so quite a few of the Browns succumbed to that. And Dad was investigated at Duke. He went through all kinds of tests, medical tests. And I think they determined that he wasn't carrying whatever that gene was that made everybody susceptible. And so that's why I think we told our kids to, be sure to get their checkups, just in case it jumped a generation or something. But I never had any bad test results, and I don't know that our kids have.
Yeah, they probably haven't started to even have that checked by now. They're such puppies.
I know, yeah.
Daddy died of bladder cancer.
Yeah. I guess we should say that one of his characteristics was to smoke 2 packs a day for ever since he was in high school or below high school. When did he start?
I thought it was 4.
When it was 4.
Maybe it was 3. We could split the difference. But I don't, he actually, when he was older, when after you and I were born and I remember things, he always had several cigarettes going. He had one in the bathroom that would be on the back of the toilet, and that would be burning. And then he'd have one in the kitchen that would be burning. And then he would have one often in the living room burning, but it was kind of a joke. And I just thought the air smelled like cigarettes.
Yeah, it did. That reminds me of our cousin Johnny Bratcher going to the ball game with Daddy and sitting on the bleachers, and then he went down under the bleachers and he counted the cigarette butts under there.
That
So
probably,
how Daddy ever made it to 89, I can't imagine.
I can't either.
He must have had some constitution.
Because he drank a lot for a lot of years.
Yeah, that was a weakness in the whole family, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
I just got a notice that our meeting is ending in 10 minutes. And I can upgrade and save 40%.
Well, what do you feel like?
But of course, I'm not going to do that. But they're just saying,
Because we're like our mom.
oh, yes,
We are
not
very
like our dad.
We're not going to pay for 10 more minutes. Yeah. That's a whole nother story about Daddy.
Yeah, that was a sad part of his life.
It was. But he was the sweetest guy. But he was horrible with money. And so when he married Mom, I mean, she was a bratcher. So she always paid her bills. A little aside, I remember when Annie Long, was it George? She was planning to.
No, I think it was Ed, her second husband.
And I think one of the first things she asked him, do you pay your bills?
Yeah, I think what I heard was that when Ed Comer was courting her, he asked her, well, do you have any questions? And her question was, do you pay your bills?
No, but that does sound like a bratcher now, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, that's very Bratcher.
But that made it really hard on Mom.
Yeah, it was hard.
And they lost the store, I think, in 1964 or something. About, seems like I was a sophomore in college, or maybe a freshman. But one thing, I mean, the business was just underwater, and Mom would bail him out quite a bit. And
Because she was teaching school and she had that income.
yeah, and she saved so much of it. And it was hard to save in her situation and stay up and pay people off that Daddy had borrowed money from. But
Like some of his brothers and sisters, I think.
yeah. And before I went to school, and the IRS had come and cleaned out. You remember that? And Mr.
I think I've blocked that out because I don't remember it very well. It's a small memory.
Gordon Hunter, the president of the local bank, People's Bank, called her and told her that the IRS had come, and just taken the money. And I can't remember when after that, but I was wanting to go to school, and she gave me a savings passbook, and it had my name only on it. Didn't have hers, didn't have Daddy's. And it was enough to go to school at Merida.
Great, Jay, that is amazing.
It is amazing. And she said, Rae, this is your money. And if you want to finish college, you can. If you want to buy a car, you can. If you want to go travel, you can.
Wow. Isn't that amazing?
That is so amazing. And I mean, I went to school, I went to a summer school, and I ended up having, being able to save some of it and, working a couple of jobs at the school. But I had enough money to go.
Wow.
He was pretty incredible.
Yeah, Dad was the eternal optimist. He was just always sure things were going to work out. I guess, I always thought that maybe it just kind of came from Papa Brown not getting after him about charging that ice cream. So he's kind of, that's just, that was his mindset. It's going to work out, it'll be fine.
I kind of thought that probably that, but when he had his store, that he was just sure that Mom was going to bail him out.
Mm-hmm.
And seems like I remember Mom talking about Daddy, he didn't pay his bills, but he in the store, he never, pursued a lot of money that, somebody owed him.
Mm-hmm.
So
we have 3 minutes, so this is maybe a 3-minute warning.
Okay.
So we need to wrap up about what a fantastic father we have, but all of us have our
Right.
oddities. Except you and me. Of course, we have no oddities.
That's right. Absolutely none. But I will say it'll stop in a minute. But Mom was talking to me about being married. I was saying, gosh, wasn't it really hard? And she was saying, yes. She said, the first 4 years were wonderful. They were the happiest years. She said, but the next 30 were kind of hard. And she said, now the last 30 have been great.
That's a great story to end on. Okay, goodbye, descendants.
Bye.
We love you. I'm going to stop recording so that we won't just get cut off. Where is record?
I can help you with that.
Oh, let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. Oh, and it has a little, I didn't know that it has a little note to me. This is a learning process, descendants. It says remaining meeting time, upgrade to pro. Okay, we love you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Right your way.